Hi, this is Walter Weesey with Yellowstone Country Fly Fishing. This is my weekly Montana guide flies fly tying video for December, 3rd, 2024. And what I'm doing today is another one that I've done previously, but it didn't get much traction before. And it really bothered me that it didn't, because this is my favorite sort of midge pattern that's got this kind of, overall look. Long, kind of not tapering, skinny abdomen, often red with a little fluff at the head. There's a lot of flies like that. This is called a Willy's pip. And I actually started fishing this when I was like 18, 19 in the Ozarks in the winter on the White River, the Table Rock tailwater in Missouri. And this thing just works fantastic, and it works a lot better than any other flies that kind of look like this, a little peacock at the head, a little abdomen, because it's got the movement. You got this extended body here that's furled, and that's going to, when it's wet, move really well. It doesn't swim, but it undulates kind of, and real bugs move. And it's also fairly easy to tie, and you can actually get away with a bigger hook. This is an 18, and the fly itself that I'm going to tie is really more of like a size 20 in terms of size. And you can also get away with a smaller hook, meaning if you wanted to tie this as a chironomid for lake fishing, I would probably use a size 14 hook, and then this is actually single strand floss here, but you could use anything. You could use a body braid material, the Midge thread I've used in a few of my flies in the last month or so, embroidery, floss, all kinds of things, and all you do is you just twist it into this extended body. And so if you didn't want to use a 3x long hook for tying a chironomid midge for fishing in a lake, you could use a scud hook like this and still have that extended body. And if you happen to get a small fish, that big 3x long hook might rip them up, but a short one wouldn't. And you also lose that extended hook shank leverage. When you have a long hook, there's a little more lever action on that hook, and it can, if you get a big fish, it can actually pull out. That's why streamer hooks, you don't see a 6x long streamer hook anymore. You tie them articulated. It's because of that leverage it gives the fish. But anyhow, dirt simple fly here, two materials, floss and peacock herl, and I'll show you how to tie it. Okay, and so I've got a size 18 heavy wire scud hook in the vise here, and I would actually usually tie this fly in a 20, maybe even a 22, but for sake of the video, it's a little easier to get focused on the hook and so on when it's an 18. And I usually don't use a bead on this one. You easily could, and I would not use a tungsten bead on this ever. I'd just use a brass bead, and I'd use a gold one. All right, my thread here is going to be size 80 uni in black, and again, you can easily change, whatever size or whatever size thread you like. If you're using tying a chironomid, you could go bigger on the thread. If you wanted to use a smaller thread, you could, but one of the benefits of this fly is you really don't have to, because there's so little actual tying involved that you can get away with a slightly heavier thread, which I think is also a more durable thread. But anyhow, I started that thread right there at the eye, backed it down slightly, and that's really the only tying, so to speak, area on the hook here. I leave that hook blank. Now, if I was tying it bigger, like a 14 for a chironomid, maybe I'd use some flash or something to create an underbody, but you don't have to do that. Now, my body here is going to be red unifloss, and you could use a strand or two out of 4-strand floss, or even embroidery floss, kind of fray out the end of it and pull out a couple strands of it, and that works identically. But I just, I'd have to root around for my embroidery floss, and I had this. But what you're going to actually do with this to create that segmentation is you're going to twist it. And so you take that length of floss, and then you just roll it between your fingers like this. And that probably isn't going to show up that well in the video, because it's I'm focused in. I've got the camera about an inch from my hook here, and so it's probably going to be too out of focus to really see what I'm doing there. But I've rolled that until it's kind of corded, and then I'm going to stick my finger in the middle of that strand, like so, bring the ends together. So I'm holding both, I'm holding the ends in one hand, and then the loop I've made in the other, and then I just let it go, and I let that twist up. And then usually what you'll need to do is actually give it a little bit more twist, and kind of push those twists down into the end a little bit, perhaps. That one didn't twist up as well as they usually do, so I'm going to redo it. The other thing you can do, and this is how I kind of learned how to tie this fly, is I would tie in one end of the floss first and then twist it, and then tie in the other end. And that's just one more step, and it actually creates more bulk, so I stopped doing it that way. But this one just doesn't want to twist. The sample fly wanted to twist up just fine. All right, that one's better. All right, and anyway, that's what you want it to look like. That gives you your segmentation. And on a larger one, you could easily use put a strand of thread in there. You could use something with a little flash, so you get a little bit of variation, the equivalent of a rib on a zebra midge, for example. And but on this one, on the little red ones, I just like the red, like that. But I'm going to come in anyway, and I'm going to take the kind of corded end of that. I'm going to tie it in like so, and you can adjust the length. I don't want it that long, but that's why I said if I wanted to tie a chironomid for some reason, I could make it as long as I needed to. But I want it about like that. I'm going to come over. This would be a lot easier if the camera weren't sitting right next to the vise here. And then you can adjust the length too once you get it kind of in, but I tightened that wrap a little bit, make a couple more wraps. Trim that. And then my head here, or thorax, is going to be 2 strands of kind of ratty peacock herl. And I'm going to tie that in. I've got to be really careful here not to hit the camera because I've got it right next to the vise to get focused on that thing and actually have it close enough so you can see what I'm doing. But anyway, I tied that in and I left that thread hanging immediately in front of those peacock herls. And the next thing I'm going to do is actually apply some super glue to that thread underlayer there. And then while that's still wet, I'm going to go ahead and wrap that peacock. You can see here I'm probably hitting the camera. All right. And then once I get that there, go ahead and take a couple turns. Trim that excess. And then whip finish. And my whip finish is just going to be a standard 4-turn whip finish here. I didn't like how that finished. I'm literally hitting the camera right now with my whip finishing tool. I'm so close. I need to get a better camera. I just can't afford one. Anyhow, you whip finish, cut your thread, and there you have it. That's a Willy's pip. And if I hadn't had the camera sitting an inch from my vise there, I can whip one of those out in about a minute. And you do lose a lot of them, obviously. A little tiny midge on a little hook, and you bust off a lot of fish. You bend out the hooks and so on. But tie some of those up. Try them, in the winter here or anywhere that you wind up fishing midges. If you happen to be in the Midwest, this fly, a San Juan worm in several colors, and a gray olive size 16 scud, I'd be willing to bet you could catch about 90% of your fish if you're just looking for numbers on the White River. Those 3 patterns are basically all I used when I used to live in Missouri. Anyhow, that's it. Willy's pip. I have no idea who Willy is, but he came up with a good fly. Twist a few of those up and try them this winter. Thanks for watching, and if you find this fly pattern helpful or my other content helpful, I'd appreciate it if you could drop a buck in my Buy Me a Coffee tip jar. Link in the bottom of the description there. Thanks for watching, and see you next week.